Good morning. I'm Dorothy, and my aim is to combine my experience as a diet coach and a cooking teacher and a small-scale farmer into videos that will help you on your way to permanent, sustainable fat loss. Today's video is a cooking tutorial on berries and some berry desserts. There are two very easy ones. The first is called a berry fool, and I'll explain in the kitchen why it's called a fool. The second one is a strawberry Semi Freddo. They're both wonderful. They're both easy. The reason that I'm focusing on berries for desserts, by the way, there is a good reason. And the reason is most fruit on low carb and keto diets is out of bounds, primarily due to fructose is the fruit sugar, and fructose is metabolized in the liver, and so therefore it's not really allowed. But berries are one of those that are a little bit different. And if you want to know the science behind all this, I would direct you to Thomas DeLauer's video on fructose. It's in the description below, and he does a much better job of explaining it and the science behind it than I could. He's a much more interesting talking head, if you will. Okay, since we're talking about berries today, I thought I'd show you the part of the farm where we grow blueberries. This is a 14-year-old blueberry bush. It is in full blossom now, and it's June 3rd. Second week in July, all these blossoms will turn into those wonderful, healthy blueberries that we all love. So maybe later in the summer, I'll come back on and do a cooking tutorial that involves blueberries. For today, it's going to be strawberries and maybe raspberries. We'll see when we get in the kitchen. So if you like these videos and you want to see more, subscribe below. And while you're there, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment if you have anything in particular that you want me to talk about. I intend to talk about cheat days and all kinds of low carb things, but primarily focused on cooking tutorials. So these blueberries, by the way, we have 600 of them, and this is just one, but I can't show you the whole patch. So, are you ready? Let's go to the kitchen. Okay, so here we are in the kitchen, and we've got our strawberries, and I'm going to walk you through 3 different ways to use them in a low-carb, delicious way. You can call it a dessert or a breakfast or whatever you want to call it. The first one is very, very simple, exceptionally simple, just basically chopped berries and heavy whipping cream. The second is a little bit more. It's called a fool, a strawberry fool, and that does require some blending of the whipped cream. And the third is a Semi Freddo, which has a few more cooking skills, but it's still pretty easy. Just know that it does take some chilling time, but I'll walk you through it. The thing is all 3 of them require dealing with the berries and the dairy. So before getting into the recipes, I thought we'd just deal with the berries a little bit first. There's 3 things we're going to do with the berries. We are going to hull them, quarter them, and macerate them. And I'll tell you what those are. Hulling is just taking the stems off, basically. I use this little huller, which is really sharp and just pulls the stems right out. You can also just cut the stems off with a knife, like this, but the huller is easy and you don't waste any of the berries. So that's hulling. Then quartering is just what it says. Just take them and quarter the berries so that they're nice and thin. And then macerating, macerating means pulling all the juices out of the berries and plumping them up. And basically it's just adding a little bit of sugar and maybe some liquid and letting them sit for 30 minutes or longer so that all of the sweet, wonderful juices come out. Now with macerating, you can use some kind of liquid if you want. And because this is low carb, I'm going to be using Truvia, which is a sugar substitute. I am going to zest a little bit of lemon over it for the flavor. And then I'm going to use one of 3 things to put in for the liquid, and that's going to be either a teaspoon of balsamic vinegar, a teaspoon of black currant liqueur, or a teaspoon of Pimms, which is also a liqueur. And finally, just a touch of salt, and salt brings out the flavor of berries, especially strawberries, more than you would think. So I'm going to go quarter and hold these, and I will be right back. Okay, so I've got most of them hulled and quartered. I left about 4 out here so that you could see how difficult this is. And then I'm going to add our additions, and we'll put it in the refrigerator to macerate for 30 minutes or longer. This is a pound of strawberries, by the way. And this is a 1/4 cup of Truvia. This is 1/8 of a teaspoon of vanilla. And then we're going to grate some lemon zest over it. I'm going to stand up for that. Okay, I'm not going to make you watch all of that, but you zest the whole lemon, and then you decide, do I want to use Currant, Pimms, or Balsamic? We're going to go for Pimms. Okay, 1 teaspoon of Pimms cup. Okay, mix that all together, and then I'm going to put the rest of the lemon zest on, mix it all together, and put it in the fridge for a half hour or longer, and then we'll be back and deal with the dairy, okay? Okay, while we're waiting for the berries to macerate and get all plump and juicy and sweet, I'm gonna just go through the dairy real quick. You can use, with strawberries, there are 3 things that work really well, actually 4, but a lot of recipes call for what's called creme fraiche, and creme fraiche is basically fermented cream. I'm going to use, it's harder to find, I'm going to use heavy whipping cream instead. Creme fraiche is 30% fat. It's made from just fermenting the cream. Then you move into sour cream, which is 20% fat, and this is fermented milk and cream. So both of those together, it's a little more tangy, not quite as rich. And then you move into yogurt, Greek yogurt or plain yogurt. This is 5%, the higher fat yogurt. You want the higher fat yogurt because it's less sugar. And yogurt is fermented milk, and it's 10%, 10 to 12% fat. So they range from 30% fat, 20% fat, 10% fat, cream, milk and cream, and milk. So that's the difference. And you can use them interchangeably unless you're doing hot food. With cold food, it doesn't really matter. It's a matter of preference and taste. With hot food, you don't want to use, like in a sauce or a soup, you wouldn't want to use yogurt because it will, it doesn't have enough fat. It will separate. So the very, very easiest way to do strawberries is slice them, quarter them, don't macerate them. Take your whipped cream and just shake it. You don't even have to whip anything. This makes a really nice breakfast, actually, and just pour a little bit of it over them. And, oops, I'm going to just try a bite here. If your strawberries are sweet, it's a great way to go. If they're not sweet, you might want to put a little Truvia on them. These are sweet. So that's it. Good breakfast. Okay, so the berries and whipped cream was the exceptionally easy. This one's really easy. I wouldn't call it exceptionally because you do need a blender, but it's really easy. Take out the macerated berries that we did earlier, and remember we macerated them with a little lemon zest, some Truvia, a little vanilla, and this one I put in some Pimms. So take those out of the fridge and halve them, divide them into half. Put half of them in a blender and blend up. To puree them. Pour the puree into the whole berries. Okay. Mix that together. And then take your whipped cream, the one with the soft peaks, and fold that in. I'm losing my balance here, so I'll have to stand up. So yeah, just fold that in gently, and you'll have some puree in there and some chunks, and then just spoon it into your glass, and you have, this is called a strawberry fool. A fool is a really old dessert. It goes back to the 17th century. There's some debate about why they call it a fool. Some people say it was a French word that meant, it was pronounced foule, and it means to crush. But Oxford Dictionary doesn't agree with that, so I'll let you decide. That's it. Whipped cream, berries, a little puree, and then I've got some pistachios here on top. Some people put cookies, and once you add cookies and do some other things with it and layer it, it becomes what's called a parfait. So fool, parfait, it's all good. I think I better taste this one. It is definitely all good. So you can refrigerate this for a couple hours. You don't want to refrigerate it for too long or it will separate. Okay? Now, on to the Semi Freddo. Okay, last but not least is a little bit more elegant dessert and one that you could serve to guests or anybody, and it is wonderful. It's called a Semi Freddo. Most Semi Freddos are, a lot of them are made with eggs. This one is not. This is a low carb Semi Freddo. The word Semi Freddo, it's an Italian phrase that means half cold or half frozen. So it's kind of similar to an ice cream, but you don't eat it completely cold. So the first thing to do, and probably the trickiest thing, is to figure out what mold you're going to use. A Semi Freddo does take some chilling time. So saran wrap is always the hardest thing to deal with. I'm going to use this as a mold. You can use individual ramekins or you can use a bigger pot. So you want to, it helps the saran wrap not be so sticky if you sprinkle it with water a little bit. And then just push this in as best you can, and so that it forms with the mold that you're going to use. Okay, set that aside, and into a food processor you put in a pound of strawberries. Okay, a quarter cup of Truvia, a teaspoon of, an eighth of a teaspoon of vanilla, or just a touch. This time I'm going to use the balsamic. I did get it open. So a teaspoon of balsamic. Okay, a pinch of salt. The lemon zest, which I grated up ahead of time. And then this time we will use yogurt. Now I lost my spatula, so I'll use a spoon. It comes out better if you use a spatula. But I'm using yogurt this time. You could use sour cream. Sour cream will be a little tangier. And but it's a cup, or 3/4 of a cup of yogurt, plain Greek yogurt. Okay, and then you blend that up. Pulse it a little bit first to get it going. Okay, so once that is into a puree, you pour that into the whipped cream. And fold it in gently. So you're going to chill this for about 2 hours, and then after it's chilled, we will unmold it and put on some crushed pistachios. So in the meantime, while it's chilling, you want to clean your food processor and crush up the pistachios. Okay, now I'm going to have more than this mold. Well, maybe not. Okay, I've seen people, you can do this like individually, it's really elegant, or you can do it in a cake pan type of thing for a round, but this rectangular shape is probably the most common. You want something with a flat base because when you put your pistachios on it, you want to, it's going to look better. Okay, so cover this with saran wrap, put it in the freezer for 2 hours, and we'll be back. So let's try this now. I have not done it. So I'm going to warm it up a little bit on the base here with my hands. Hopefully that'll help it unmold a little bit better. Oops, take the plastic wrap off. We don't want that on the bottom. And then I suppose you could do it like this. All right, so I did warm it up a lot so that it was semi-frozen instead of all the way frozen, and it came out of the mold pretty easily then. I would, however, put less of a pistachio crust on, or else grind them up more because it's a little bit hard to chop. If by any chance your mold doesn't come out, put it in a bowl, have some wonderful strawberry semi-Freddo ice cream with pistachio nut topping, and call it a day. So next up, we're going to be doing greens and veggies with some green goddess dressing. And I'm a little better at veggies than I am at desserts. So we will talk to you then.